Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, June 9th, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 electoral map if Donald Trump wins by a 10-point margin nationwide. So essentially, I'm taking the previous 2016 election results when it was Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, obviously, and I adjusted it to a point where state-wide increases of 12.1% benefit Donald Trump, meaning he gets 12.1% more voters, considering that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 2.1%. He still won 306 electoral votes. I know it's not a perfect science, but we're basing it off of the 2016 election results. And since we don't have all of the primary information yet, we don't really have any at least for every single state, expected turnout amongst Democrats versus Republicans and how that will shape the landscape. Obviously, as we get into the closer months towards the election, we will start to see that information evolve. We're actually getting a number of primaries in today, most notably in Georgia. But besides that point, when we're taking a look at this electoral map, this is just adjusting the 2016 margins and giving Donald Trump a 10-point lead nationwide, essentially adjusting all of his other states by a 12.1%. The reason for that is because he lost the popular vote by 2.1% to Hillary Clinton. When I adjusted it for Joe Biden, it was only what in comparison seems a minimal increase of 7.9% statewide. That's because Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote in 2016, so I can't add an additional 10% to that, considering that I'm maxing both of these candidates off at 10%. I was originally going to just call it double digits and use 10%, but I'm just going to go ahead and be very specific and use 10% as the overall characterization. I will say that this map shows how effective of a candidate Donald Trump was in 2016. Again, that could be a combination of a number of things against Secretary Hillary Clinton and for Donald Trump. It was pretty much the perfect storm in order for him to win on Election Day. 2 weeks before Election Day, he was down 7 points. Then on Election Day, he was only down 2 points nationwide. That ended up being the actual margin. Hillary Clinton pretty much lost the presidency in the last 14 days. And Donald Trump really stuck to his presidential type style of campaigning as we reached into the final leg of the 2016 season. But taking a look at this electoral map, it is very surprising to me to see a lot of these states in safe red and likely red. It is going to be pretty interesting taking a look at some of these solid Democratic states, which it's not a lot of flipping from Democratic, at least safe Democratic states, but it is very interesting to take a look at because honestly, I don't think this is a realistic scenario. I don't think a Republican is probably going to win the popular vote. In the near future, the Democratic Party is probably going to hold on to it. I think the last time the Republican Party won the popular vote was in 2004. Other than that, since the year 2000, the Democrats have won every single election's popular vote, even if they lost the actual election by the Electoral College. So what that attests to in terms of the reliability of both systems in terms of electing president is not up for me to decide. But I will say that the Democratic Party, I honestly do expect to do very well in terms of the popular vote, maybe not so much in the Electoral College. The Democratic Party is increasing in terms of population centers, but it's all being congested in certain states, California, Texas, and while Texas may be a Republican state, if it does end up being a reliably Democratic state, not necessarily a reliably Democratic state, but a toss-up state, I think the Republican Party is going to focus a lot more money and effort onto that state than they do already. But for states like California and other population centers around the country, that's where a lot of the Democratic vote is coming from, which is why pretty much I do think the Democratic Party is going to have it really easy in terms of the popular vote coming up in future elections. But let's go ahead and actually classify all of the safe Democratic states because, again, I want to outline how bad of a situation this would be for Vice President Biden. There's only 70, let's go ahead and see, around 70 electoral votes that are considered safe for the Democratic Party in this scenario. So that includes the state of California, which is pretty expected. I mean, it's California, Massachusetts, the District of Columbia, and the state of Hawaii. So it is pretty important to note that the Democratic Party only has 73 safe electoral votes. And it comes from 4 states, and or at least 3 states in the District of Columbia. This is going to be a very red map, to say the least. If it was all filled in safe red and safe blue, you would see just how red it's going to be. But considering that there's shades in here, I don't know what's going on with my voice. I do think that it will make the map look a little bit more lenient towards the Democratic Party, but at the end of the day, the Democratic Party doesn't even come near what Mitt Romney got in 2012 and roughly around the same numbers as John McCain in 2008, which, putting in perspective based off what we expect in 2020, is not a good look. Let's go ahead and characterize all of the safe Republican states, and there are a lot of them. While Donald Trump does not get an outright Electoral College win based off of all of the safe states, there are some states that we consider safe, swing states right now, that are considered safe for this type of electoral matchup. Pretty much I have 110, or at least let's go and see this, 114 electoral votes in terms of safe, not 125, that's the number that we always stick with, 125 electoral votes that are considered safe, but it's not done here. We need to go ahead and characterize a number of swing states that in 2020 are possibly expected to go to the Democratic Party. And it just goes to show how effective, again, Donald Trump was as a candidate in 2016, and the margins that he had were phenomenal for him. I mean, he was winning in Iowa and Ohio by nearing 10% in 2016. So you can only imagine, with an additional 12 points added to these states, how beneficial that actually is for President Trump. States such as Texas become safe again. States such as Georgia and North Carolina move over into the safe column, which is unexpected completely. Ohio and Iowa move over into the safe column. I mean, it's insane to look at the amount of safe electoral votes there are for President Trump. Maine 2nd District and the state of Arizona. So while Arizona and North Carolina and Ohio and Iowa and Georgia and Maine 2nd District are all toss-ups, and Texas are all toss-ups in 2020, they are pretty solid for President Trump if this was the outcome. Based off the 2016 numbers, while he did win in these states by a pretty substantial margin compared to what he's expected to get in 2020 based off the data we have right now, adding that additional, having him with a 10-point lead nationwide over Joe Biden would be abysmal for the Democratic Party. They would not even get close to what they got in 2016 in terms of electoral count. And that comes off the backs of a number of safe states, or at least likely or lean Republican states becoming now solid and moving over and shifting the country way further to the right. Let's go ahead and characterize some of the likely Democratic states. Again, we're just going to go back and forth. That includes states such as New York, which is very surprising. New York and Maryland are not considered to be safe in this scenario. Vermont is also going to be another likely Democratic state, and that's it. That's all there is in terms of likely Democratic states nationwide based off of this scenario. So Maryland, New York, and Vermont all narrow down below 15%. While it's a narrow, lower than 15%, it still is there regardless. And again, very bad look for the Democratic Party. Let's go ahead and characterize all of the likely Republican states, and there are some shockers. Obviously, the Rust Belt, which went to Trump in 2016, would still not reach 15%, but still be enough to be considered likely. Minnesota, which went to Hillary Clinton, would move over into the Republican column and be considered likely effectively. Donald Trump has already won the presidency. Florida moves over into the likely Republican column, which is also very surprising, but not unexpected. The margin's nearing around 13% in Florida. 11%. 13% in Florida. For the state of Virginia, this one moves over into the likely Republican column as well. While Hillary Clinton carried it by around 6%, again, a 12-point swing moves it over past the lean into likely. Same thing goes for the state of Colorado and Nevada, which were both narrower than Virginia. So that puts Donald Trump at around 113 likely electoral votes. I believe there is just another state to be considered. Well, Nebraska's 2nd District and Maine at large is considered likely. So again, that's a statewide flip, and New Hampshire goes into the likely Republican column. So that puts Donald Trump at 350 electoral votes, and he's only going to really do a little bit better from here. It's going to be a very unexpected margin of victory for him. While the Democratic Party does have some states that are still considered lean, let's go ahead and actually characterize the Republican states that are considered to be lean Republican states. So we have states such as, actually I think that they are considered tilt because they are less than 1%. Actually, no. So these are lean states. Oregon and New Mexico. These are two states that are moving over into the lean Republican column. I think that it's pretty important to note that Oregon was actually mildly close in 2016. It was an 11-point margin of victory for Hillary Clinton, and that 12-point swing puts it just enough in the Donald Trump column for this election, which I think is absolutely insane. For the state of New Mexico, it's an 8-point margin for Hillary Clinton. It makes sense that it moves over into the lean column. But again, this electoral map is not necessarily super realistic. Nothing, at least no data we have right now, reflects that this is even a possibility. But it is always interesting to speculate. For the Democratic Party, they do have some lean states. Pretty much almost all of the remaining areas, Maine's 1st District would be considered lean. Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Illinois, and the state of Washington. So that's pretty much it in terms of the electoral votes that the Democratic Party is going to get. Donald Trump actually would win Joe Biden's home state in terms of the state that he served as a senator from, Delaware, by a tilt margin according to the 2016 numbers. And that is insane. I mean, Delaware, Oregon, New Mexico, Virginia, Colorado, states that are reliably blue now, all going over to Donald Trump. And Illinois, Washington, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, now lean Democratic states. The fact that there's only 73 safe electoral votes, again, shows how Donald Trump pretty much crippled the 2016 map for the Democratic Party. If we applied this to the 2012 numbers, the Democratic Party would be at a much better stance. Apply this to the 2008 numbers, an even better position. So when we take a look at a number of these states, while some of them still hold on to their Democratic identity, it's not by a large margin. In fact, certain states that are safe blue in 2020 have flipped to Donald Trump in this potential scenario. There's no data, again, that reflects Donald Trump winning by 10% nationwide, but I do think it is very interesting to speculate, and I do appreciate that some of you guys did want to see a Donald Trump version of this. I know I did a Joe Biden version. That was mainly because polling data was showing him with a double-digit lead, but again, I will do what you guys asked me to do, so I'm going to do this type of video, which obviously is done already. But yeah, so it finishes up the electoral map with Donald Trump at 365 electoral votes. Just for the sake of filling out this map, we're actually going to characterize it with a solid color, because that way we can actually go ahead and envision what this would look like. When we're talking about what the media is going to put out after the election, they're going to show us a map very similar to the one that I'm putting on the screen right now. And you can actually start to see exactly how red the country has gotten from this standpoint, because in this scenario, pretty much, nothing is really going to be considered a lean, tilt, whatever, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump has won with 365 electoral votes, and that's going to be the headline. It's not going to be that New Jersey was close, Delaware flipped. It's going to be that Donald Trump won a landslide election, and you can see exactly how blue and how red the country is. It's a sea of red with some pockets of blue that are starting to be broken into. Delaware, New Hampshire, Maine, Oregon. I mean, the West Coast was broken through in this scenario. We have a northeastern state that's been taken out of consideration. Virginia and no parts of the Sun Belt at all. Literally no parts of the entirety of the Sun Belt except for California go to the Democratic Party. So very notable this election. Taking a look at the map, 365 for Trump, 173 for Donald Trump. Again, no data indicates that Donald Trump could have a 10-point lead, but if he does, we could see a map very similar to this one in 2020. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please consider joining as a member on my channel, and I will see you all later today.